I should have died that night in the forest. The doctors said I survived by a miracle, but the truth is far worse. Because when I crawled out of those trees, bleeding, shaking, desperate for help, I stumbled into a village that shouldn't exist. A village full of people who looked me dead in the eyes and told me I had already died years ago. And as the nights grew longer and the things in the shadows started whispering my name, I realized the most terrifying question wasn't whether they were lying, but whether I was still alive at all.
Chapter 1.
Chapter 1. Don't trust the first person who says your name. The forest spat her out like something it no longer wanted. Mara stumbled through the last curtain of trees, one hand pressed to the throbbing wound along her ribs, the other gripping a broken branch she'd been using as a crutch. The fog thickened as she limped into a clearing, pale, heavy, unnatural. It clung to her like wet hands. She breathed in, expecting the sharp scent of pine and soil, but instead found only the faint odor of damp stone, old smoke, and something metallic underneath. Ahead, lantern lights trembled in the mist. A village, small, silent, forgotten. She almost cried with relief. She took one step, then another, but the fog swallowed her sounds. Even her ragged breaths seemed quieter here. Hours had passed since the accident, though outside, the night stayed the same. A moonless void overhead, a forest that stretched behind her like an open mouth. Mara's heart slowed, but a whisper in the trees made it race again. She didn't look back. She couldn't. The first building emerged from the fog, a crooked wooden hut with a sputtering lantern swinging on a rusted hook. The flame shouldn't have survived in this kind of dampness, but here it burned steady, unwavering, like an eye watching her approach. Then a figure stepped out. A man, middle-aged, gaunt, wrapped in a patched gray coat. His eyes were pale, washed out, almost colorless. For a second, he said nothing. Then his lips twitched, and he whispered, with a strange softness, "Mara." She froze. He said her name perfectly, calmly, as if he had been expecting her. Her throat tightened. "How do you know me?" The man gave a thin, reluctant smile. "We remember everyone who's buried here." She stared at him. The fog pulsed around them, as if reacting to his words. "What?" she said, voice cracking. "Buried?" He stepped closer, not threatening, but certain, like someone greeting a long-awaited guest. His boots didn't make a sound on the dirt road. "Your funeral was years ago. You shouldn't be standing. Yet here you are, home again." The world tilted. Pain flared along her ribs. This had to be shock, a hallucination. She was hurt, freezing, exhausted. The accident scrambled her thoughts, replaying images she couldn't fully grasp. Metal twisting, headlights arcing downward, her own screams swallowed by the trees. But this place, this man, they felt too real. The wind shifted, carrying a faint creak of distant houses, and from somewhere within the fog came the slow echo of a church bell. Not ringing, just swaying, groaning, as if moved by unseen hands. Mara backed away. "I think you're mistaken. I've never been here. I don't even know where I am. I don't know any of you." The man's expression didn't change. "Eldhall, you came back the same way you left." His tone was gentle, but wrong. gentle in the way a doctor speaks when delivering news they've prepared too long for. Mara scanned the village. More shapes appeared between the drifting veils of fog. Windows glowing faintly, narrow alleys splitting off into darker spaces, silhouettes standing in door frames, watching her silently. No one spoke. No one blinked. They just stared, like they were assessing her, remembering her. A tremor went through her. Her breath clouded in the cold air. "I need help," she whispered. "I was in an accident. I don't know where I am. I don't know any of you." The man nodded slowly, sympathetically. "Of course you don't. That's how it always is." She swallowed hard. What is always is?" He didn't answer. Instead, he raised his hand toward the rest of the village. A signal. Figures shifted in the fog. Not closer, just enough to let her know they'd been there the whole time. Mara's pulse drummed in her ears, her vision blurred. The wound along her ribs throbbed with each heartbeat. "I need a doctor," she said. The man's eyes softened with a sadness she didn't understand. "There hasn't been a doctor here since your burial." Her stomach plunged. This was wrong. All of it. A sick joke. A dream twisted by trauma. But the man's voice drifted toward her again, gentle and patient, as though speaking to a child waking from sleep. "Don't trust the first person who says your name, because they're the one who's been waiting for you." The phrase felt rehearsed, practiced, as if he'd said it before, to others. A chill crawled up Mara's spine. She stepped back, but the fog behind her grew thicker, pressing against her legs like a barrier, as if the forest itself didn't want her leaving. Lanterns flickered. A door creaked open somewhere down the road. More villagers gathered, forming a loose half-circle around her. Trapped. Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Please," she whispered, voice shaking. "I just need help." The man exhaled slowly, stepped aside, and gestured deeper into the village. "We'll help you. But you must come back inside, where you belong." The fog swallowed his words, and the forest behind her whispered as if answering. Mara didn't move, but Eldhollow did.
Chapter 2.
Chapter 2. If the village remembers you, run. The villagers didn't touch her, but they moved with quiet purpose, guiding her without guiding her, surrounding her without ever stepping close enough to feel real. It was as if the fog itself pushed her deeper into Eldhollow, nudging her along its narrow stone paths. Mara kept one hand pressed against her ribs. The pain had dulled to a heavy, rhythmic throb, but the cold seeped through her jacket like a second skin. Every breath burned. Lanterns flickered along wooden posts, their flames wavering in a wind she couldn't feel. Windows glowed faint gold. Doors creaked open just enough for curious eyes to peer out. No one smiled, no one spoke above a whisper, and no one looked surprised to see her. That was what unsettled her most. Not the silence, not the fog, not even the hollowed faces watching her from shadowed porches, but the familiarity. Eldhollow acted like a body remembering an old scar. A woman with gray braids finally approached. She wore a shawl woven with strange looping patterns, spirals, crosses, something that resembled a knot pulled too tight. Her voice came out soft and breathy. "You shouldn't be out here in this cold. Come inside." Mara hesitated. "Do you know me?" Long pause. Then, "Everyone here knows you, child." Her heart froze. "How? I've never—" The woman raised a thin, trembling hand. "Hush. We'll talk inside. Walking in the open at night, it invites attention. Attention from what? Mara didn't ask. She didn't want the answer. Still, she followed the woman into a squat stone building near the center of the village. The door groaned as it opened, and the air inside smelled of old wood, dried herbs, and something faintly sweet, almost like funeral flowers left too long in stagnant water. The room was warmer, though the heat had a stale quality, as if the fireplace had been burning the same logs for decades. A long wooden table dominated the center. On it sat a stack of aged leather books bound with twine, their pages yellowed and curled. Mara's gaze lingered on them. The woman noticed. These are the village records. We keep them very carefully. What kind of records? All kinds, the woman said, settling into a chair with a sigh that carried centuries of exhaustion. Births, departures, burials. The word hit like a shard of glass. Burials. Mara stepped closer to the table. Her breath trembled. Why did that man say I was dead? The woman's eyes flicked upward. An emotion passed through them too quickly to read. Because he remembered your passing. Mara's pulse surged. That's impossible. I've never set foot here. The woman's fingers grazed the top book, tracing its spine. Memory can be a cage, Mara. And this village, it never forgets it's dead. Her stomach tightened. A distant bell groaned again, farther away this time, but still within reach of the fog. Please, Mara whispered, just show me. The woman hesitated, then pulled the largest book from the stack. The binding cracked like brittle bones. The pages smelled of dust and damp earth. One by one, she flipped through entries written in an elegant, looping script. Names, dates, notes, symbols Mara didn't recognize. Finally, she stopped. Her fingers rested on a page where ink had bled into the parchment, turning the words into a bruise. There, etched into the page in faded black, Mara Ellen Ward, laid to rest, 7 years past. Her breath left her lungs. Her vision tightened around the edges, tunneling toward that single line. Her fingers shook as she touched the page, half expecting the ink to smear, to vanish, to reveal itself as some cruel prank. But the ink stayed, still and certain. This can't be real, she whispered. The woman's voice softened. The dead return to Eld Hollow in many ways. Some come seeking warmth, some come seeking answers. Some, her eyes lingered on Mara's wound, come because the forest sends them back unfinished. Cold sweat rolled down her spine. Stop, she whispered. Please, stop. The woman didn't. You left once. You shouldn't have come back. Mara backed away from the table. Her shoulder hit a shelf of stacked candles, making them rattle like bones knocking together. Her heart hammered, each beat sharp as a knife edge. Outside, footsteps shuffled past the window. Slow, dragging, familiar somehow. She felt eyes watching her through the glass. She turned toward the door. I have to go. Where? She asked. Anywhere, away from here. The woman shook her head. If the village remembers you, her voice dropped to a whisper. Run. Silence stretched. The fire popped, sending embers drifting upward like tiny dying stars. The woman leaned forward, her expression suddenly grave. Run now, because memory is a cage, and Eld Hollow does not unlock its doors lightly. Mara grabbed the door handle. The metal felt warm, too warm as if a hand had just released it. She pulled it open, stepping back into the icy fog. The villagers were waiting, not close, just close enough, all watching her, and all remembering. Mara's breath hitched. She didn't know where the road led. She didn't know what followed her through the trees. She didn't know why her name was carved into a book older than her own memories. But she knew one thing. She had to run, because Eldhollow remembered her, and memory here was a trap with teeth.
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3. The forest doesn't give back what it takes. The cold bit harder the closer Mara got to the tree line. She hadn't meant to return to the forest, not after what happened, not after the panic that clawed at her ribs whenever she thought about it, but the villagers' stares pushed her there. Their silent watching had a weight to it, a pressure. Each pair of eyes made the air feel thinner, and somewhere inside Eldhollow, something had moved in the fog behind her. So, Mara drifted toward the only path she recognized, the one that had spat her out hours ago. The trees loomed like silhouettes of giants, their branches tangled, clutching, breathless. The mist remained thick, but here it swirled differently, like it was being stirred from within. The forest felt alive, listening, waiting. Mara swallowed. Her heart slowed, then quickened as a memory slid back into place. The accident. It came in fragments at first, scattered pieces of a nightmare she desperately wished she could forget. A road slick with rain, the roar of the engine, headlights cutting through a world that had narrowed into darkness. Then something on the road. Not a deer, not a person. Not anything she could name, just eyes, shining, watching. Then the world tipped, metal screeched, and the trees swallowed her whole. Her fingers trembled as another flash hit her, pulling herself across wet moss, crawling through twisted roots that clutched at her clothes. Behind her, footsteps, heavy, slow, deliberate. Something had followed. She didn't dare look back then. She didn't dare look back now. A crunch of twigs snapped sharply to her right. Mara spun. Nothing. Just fog weaving between trunks like pale, restless spirits. But she felt watched. She felt seen. A voice drifted from behind her. "You shouldn't wander near the edge, child." She whipped around. An old man stood at the forest's border, hunched but tall, with a cane made of dark, knotted wood. His eyes were milky, but not blind. They saw too much. He was the elder. She'd seen him earlier, standing far off, just beyond the village square, staring at her with a stillness that made her skin crawl. Now he approached without sound, the cane tapping the ground gently, rhythmically, almost soothingly. But nothing about him was soothing. He said, "Tell me, child, what did you lose in there?" He nodded toward the forest. "Nothing," Mara said, quickly, too quickly. "I had an accident. I must have panicked. I'm just trying to understand what happened." The elder tilted his head. "You crawled out of those woods broken, bleeding, half frozen, lucky to live." Mara stiffened. "How do you know that?" His lips curved in a sad, thin smile. "We've seen it before." Wind whispered through the branches overhead. Leaves rustled as if stirred by something unseen moving deeper in the dark. Mara tried to steady her breathing. "What do you mean, seen it before?" The elder tapped the cane again, once, twice. A heartbeat of silence. "No one escapes the forest unchanged," he said. "Not truly. It keeps what it breaks, and what it returns," his gaze locked with hers, unblinking, "is never exactly what was taken." Cold slid down her spine. "I don't understand," she whispered. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper, an intimate and grim. You left a piece of yourself in those trees. Something else crawled out with you. Something that should have stayed buried in the roots. Her mouth dried. Am I saying something followed me? The elder's gaze shifted toward the dark tangle of trees. Oh, child, things follow everyone who crosses into Eld Hollow. But you, he exhaled slowly, were chosen. A branch cracked deeper inside the forest. Not wind, not an animal, something heavier, something careful. Mara stepped backward. This is insane. I have a head injury or something. You're all talking like I'm cursed. He reached out, not touching her, but close enough for her to feel the cold radiating from his skin. Not cursed, replaced. Her heart stumbled. What? The forest doesn't give back what it takes, he said, the phrase curling into the fog like a warning spoken 1,000 times before. The words hung in the air, dense and heavy. Mara felt her knees weaken. Her mind raced, chasing meaning she didn't want to catch. I'm me. I know I am. The elder's face pinched with pity or fear. Do you? A gust of cold air surged from within the forest, carrying the unmistakable scent of damp earth and something else. Something sour, rotten. Mara staggered back. The elder stayed rooted in his place, staring into the trees as if expecting something to emerge. The fog shifted. A silhouette flickered between the trunks, human-shaped, but wrong. Bent at an angle no body should bend. Her breath hitched. Her pulse slammed. Mara, the elder said without looking at her, whatever you do, do not let it see your face. Her mouth fell open. What? Why? He whispered, because it's wearing the rest of yours. Before she could respond, a second shape moved behind the first, then a third. The forest exhaled, long and cold, and something stepped closer. Mara backed away, heart hammering so violently she thought her ribs might crack. The elder whispered one last time, trembling, "The forest doesn't give back what it takes. It only replaces it." And the trees, as if answering, swallowed the lantern light, plunging the world into deeper dark.
Chapter 4.
Chapter 4. When your reflection stops following you. Mara didn't remember entering the house. One moment she was stumbling away from the forest, breath sharp, heart pounding, legs shaking beneath her. The next, she was inside a dim, narrow room that smelled of dust, cooling ash, and something faintly metallic, almost like dried blood. A lantern flickered on a wooden table. The flame danced low, casting long shadows across the walls that bent and stretched like living things. The innkeeper, a thin woman with hollow cheeks and a nervous twitch in her left eye, hovered by the door. She hadn't asked Mara what happened. She hadn't asked why Mara looked like she had seen something wearing her face. Instead, she simply said, "You need warmth," and pushed a mug of bitter tea into her hands. Mara sank onto a stool. Her muscles trembled uncontrollably. Her skin felt cold, but the deeper cold, the real one, crawled from the inside out. She wrapped her arms around herself and tried to steady her breathing. The innkeeper wiped her hands on her apron. "You should rest. The night gets restless." Restless. The word twisted in Mara's stomach. She took a shaky sip of tea.
What was in the forest? The innkeeper froze. Not a pause, not a hesitation. A full, complete freeze, like her body had been caught in ice. You shouldn't ask about the forest, not unless you already know the answer. I don't, Mara said, but her voice lacked conviction. The innkeeper's eyes flicked toward the far wall. There's a mirror in the washroom. Clean yourself up. See if you are still you. Still me? But the woman was already retreating into the shadows. Her footsteps hurried, uneven, as though she didn't want to be near Mara a moment longer. A knot tightened in Mara's throat. Still me. The phrase rattled in her ribs like loose bones. She stood, wincing as her side flared with pain, and crossed the cramped hallway. The lantern light dimmed the closer she got to the washroom. Her breathing fogged in the cooler air. Something in the walls creaked, then whispered under its breath. Or maybe that was just her imagination trying to fill the silence. The washroom door sat at the end of the hall, slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness inside. She pushed it open. The room was small, tiled with cracked stone, a basin at the center, and above it, a mirror. Old, fractured, webbed with cracks that stretched from the center like a starburst frozen in glass. Her reflection stared back at her through broken shards. Her hair tangled, her skin pallid, her eyes wide with fear. She exhaled shakily. Okay, I'm fine. I'm still me. But something felt wrong. She leaned forward, pressing her trembling hands on the basin's edge. The reflection leaned too. At first. Then, as Mara lowered her hands to her sides, her reflection's fingers remained curled around the stone. She froze. Her breath hitched. Her heart thrashed. Slowly, so slowly it could have been an optical illusion, her reflection's lips curled upward into a smile Mara wasn't making. Her voice cracked. No. The reflection's smile deepened. Its head tilted, a fraction of a second too late. Her heartbeat hammered in her ears. The cold inside turned sharp. When your reflection hesitates, run, an old villager had whispered earlier that day, passing Mara in the street without ever meeting her eyes. She hadn't understood it then. Now, she did. She stepped back. The reflection didn't. Instead, its body leaned forward, only an inch, but enough to show that it had chosen to move. Chosen. Her throat closed. She staggered another step back, hitting the wall behind her. The reflection's smile vanished. It stared. Its jaw tightened, and with a slow, unnatural motion, it lifted a hand and pressed its palm against the inside of the glass. Mara's breath snagged. The handprint smeared the fogged surface from the wrong side. The mirror creaked. The glass trembled. A hairline crack snaked across the surface, widening, splintering, spidering outward until it split her face into fragments. Her legs turned to lead. She forced herself away from the room, stumbling into the hallway. Her chest heaved. The inn felt colder now, darker. The floorboards creaked behind her just once, like someone had placed a careful footstep on them. She didn't look back. She reached the inn's main room just as the innkeeper reappeared from the shadows. The innkeeper's eyes widened at the sight of her. You saw it, your reflection. Mara nodded once, a broken, terrified movement. The innkeeper closed her eyes as if in grief. Your reflection shouldn't exist at all, Not if the forest replaced you, not if you are something new wearing something old. Mara staggered backward. Stop! But the innkeeper shook her head. Tears welled at the edges of her lashes. When your reflection hesitates, run. A sound echoed down the hallway. Glass cracking, glass falling, glass shifting, not breaking, opening. The innkeeper's face drained of color. Mara, she whispered, her voice trembling, you didn't run fast enough. Mara turned toward the hallway. The washroom door clicked. Once. Then, the light went out.
Chapter 5.
Chapter 5. Believe the one who warns you last. Mara didn't sleep. She tried, forcing her trembling body onto the narrow bed the innkeeper offered, pulling the thin blanket over herself, closing her eyes. But the darkness pressed too close. It breathed against her skin. It whispered against her hair. And underneath her thoughts, there were other thoughts, not hers. Shadows pooled in the corners of the room like ink. The broken mirror down the hall remained silent, but she felt it, felt something inside it still shifting, still arranging itself, still waiting. Every breath tasted metallic. Every heartbeat felt borrowed. Hours passed, though outside the night stayed the same. Mara pushed herself to sit upright, arms wrapped around her knees. Her body felt wrong, lighter in some places, heavier in others, as if something inside her had rearranged itself without asking permission. She rubbed the back of her neck. Her hand twitched. Not her twitch. A movement too sharp, too foreign. I'm just tired, she whispered to the empty room. Shock, trauma, that's all. Her voice didn't sound like her own. Before she could think further, a soft knock sounded at the door. Not the single dreadful knock from earlier, just a quiet, weak tapping. Almost apologetic. Come in? She said, though dread coiled inside her like a tightening rope. The door creaked open. A villager stepped inside. A man she recognized only vaguely from the earlier crowd. Middle-aged, pale, breath shallow as if every inhale hurt. He clutched his chest with one hand, knuckles white. Mara, he rasped, I don't have long. She rose quickly. What happened? Are you hurt? He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his coat with trembling fingers and pulled out a small folded paper. He pressed it into her palm, closing her hand over it with surprising strength. You must read this, he whispered. Read it when you're alone. Mara stared at him. His eyes were wild, darting toward the hallway as though expecting something or someone to follow him. Before she could ask questions, he leaned close, breath cold as winter frost. Believe the one who warns you last. Her blood turned to ice. What does that mean? The man coughed, wet, painful. Just read the note, quickly. He staggered backward, turned, and slipped out the door, leaving it open behind him. His footsteps faded unevenly down the stairs, as if one leg no longer remembered how to move properly. Mara stood in silence. Her heart pounded. Her fingers tightened around the folded paper. She closed the door and sank onto the edge of the bed, the lantern light flickering over her hands as she carefully opened the note. The handwriting was frantic, slanted, almost carved into the paper. You are not alone inside your skin. Her breath stopped. Then, get out before it wakes. Something inside her chest shifted. Not a muscle, not a bone. Something else. Something that didn't belong. Mara's pulse hammered. Her breath hitched.
The back of her neck prickled as if cold fingers brushed against her spine. "No," she whispered. "No, no." But the feeling grew. A slow stretching beneath her ribs, a tightening in her throat, a presence pressing outward and inward at once. A whisper rose in her own mind. Not in her ears, not in the room. "Don't listen to him." Mara gasped and clamped her hands over her ears, even though sound wasn't the problem. "Get out," she whispered. "Get out of my head." But the whisper only deepened, coiling through her thoughts like smoke. "You don't need to run. You don't need to fear me. You and I, we crawled out together." Her vision flickered. The walls bent. The lantern light stretched into long, trembling lines that pulsed like veins. She pushed herself to feet, stumbling toward the door. "Stop! Stop!" Her right arm jerked sharply, without her trying to move it. The fingers curled, the nails dug into the doorframe. She tried to pull away, but the arm wouldn't release, holding her there like a clamp. Her breath came fast, frantic. Tears stung her eyes. "Let go of me!" "Why?" the voice whispered almost kindly. "We're the same. We share skin now." Her jaw locked, her pulse roared in her ears. Then, as suddenly as it had seized her, the grip loosened. Her arm dropped limp at her side. Mara stumbled away, chest heaving. In the silence that followed, she could hear every beat of her heart echoing through the room. The shadows seemed thicker now, leaning closer. She clutched the note in her trembling hand, reading the words again and again and again. "You are not alone inside your skin." The last line blurred with tears. "Get out before it wakes." The whisper in her mind faded to a low hum, like something sleeping, but aware, like a predator resting with one eye open. Footsteps echoed in the hallway, slow, uneven, dragging. The innkeeper's voice drifted through the door, thin and trembling. "Mara, are you awake? Something happened. The man who visited you, he collapsed outside. He said he needed to tell you something else before he died." Mara's hands shook violently. Her voice cracked. "What?" The innkeeper swallowed audibly as if forcing the words out. "He said," a long, trembling pause, "the last warning is the true one." Mara stared at the door. Her heartbeat stopped. Behind her, in the far corner of the dark room, something exhaled. Soft, slow, awake, and very, very real.
Chapter 6.
Chapter 6. Never open the door that knocks only once. The inn felt smaller after the warning. Shadows crowded the corners. The floorboards groaned under their own weight. The lantern hanging beside Mara's bed flickered in a lazy, shuddering rhythm, like it was breathing, like it was nervous. Mara sat on the edge of the bed, clutching the dying villager's note so tightly it wrinkled in her fist. Her pulse throbbed in her neck. A chill seeped into her bones, colder than any air she'd felt since Eld Hollow. Behind her, in the far corner of the dark room, something had exhaled. She hadn't turned to look. She wouldn't. The innkeeper's voice echoed faintly from downstairs, trying to calm the others who had gathered around the dying man outside. Faint murmurs drifted up the staircase, then silence. A heavy, unnatural silence that pressed against her ears. Her thoughts tangled. The whispers in her head swirled. Her heart pounded in uneven jolts. She tried to steady her breathing. One thing at a time, one thing. Just as she closed her eyes, knock! A single, sharp strike on her bedroom door. Mara's eyes snapped open. The sound wasn't loud. It wasn't forceful. It was worse. It was patient. Her breath caught. Her arms tensed. Every muscle in her body froze. Then came the innkeeper's voice, soft, trembling from the hallway. Mara, don't move. Footsteps padded quickly toward her room. The innkeeper's rushed, desperate steps. The door handle rattled slightly, as if someone brushed past it. The innkeeper's breath hitched. Did you hear it? Mara whispered. Yes, the innkeeper said, voice barely audible through the door. But don't speak loudly. Don't draw attention. What was that? Mara whispered. Silence stretched. Then the innkeeper spoke again, words fragile, breaking. One knock means it already knows where you sleep. Mara's blood iced. What does that mean? Mara, the innkeeper whispered, the thing from the forest didn't follow your footprints. It followed your breath, your voice, your reflection. And now it has found you. Mara shivered. Her throat tightened. She stared at the door, terrified to blink, terrified to see a shadow slip underneath it. The innkeepers continued. It won't knock again. It doesn't need permission. It only knocks once to tell you it's here. Mara swallowed. Should I run? Should I hide? No, the innkeeper said. Don't open the window. Don't open the door. Don't open anything. Another pause. Mara, don't even open your own hands unless you have to. Mara didn't understand until she realized her fingers were slowly uncurling on their own. Not at her command. She clenched them shut again. Quickly, desperately. Her pulse hammered. Her skin prickled with cold sweat. Inside her skull, the whispering voice stirred. It's just us. Don't be afraid. You don't need the door to see me. Mara shut her eyes tight. Please, she whispered. Please stop. Down the hallway, floorboards creaked. Something brushed lightly, delicately against the wall outside her room, like fingertips dragging along the wood. The innkeeper gasped. It's testing, she whispered. It wants to know if you'll come close, if you're curious enough to open the door. I'm not, Mara said, barely breathing. She wasn't sure if it was true. Mara, the innkeeper said gently, you need to sit on the bed. Don't approach the door. Don't look at the crack beneath it. Whatever you do, don't acknowledge the shadow. Mara's stomach twisted. What shadow? Silence stretched. Then the innkeeper whispered. The one that's standing there right now. Mara's blood stuttered. Her limbs trembled. Very slowly, unable to resist the urge to look, she looked at the floor. Just a quick glance. A sliver of darkness pressed against the bottom of the doorframe. Too dark, too still, too thick to be cast by lantern light. Her throat tightened, her body recoiled. The shadow didn't move, and that was somehow worse. Mara, the innkeeper said through the door, step back. Come toward me instead. Mara stood, slowly, keeping her eyes on the door. Her legs felt numb. The shadow seemed to swell, just slightly, like it noticed her movement.
Then, another exhale from the corner of the room. Behind her, Mara spun around, heart slamming into her ribs. The room was darker than before. Shadows thicker, lantern light weaker, air colder. Something shifted in the darkness above the dresser. A shape, humanoid, but wrong, leaned just outside the lantern's reach. Her chest seized. "Mara?" the innkeeper whispered. "Are you moving?" "No," Mara breathed. "It's inside." The innkeeper gasped. A soft tapping sounded behind Mara. Not on the wall, not on the floor, but against the inside of the mirror she had avoided since last night. Tap, tap, soft, testing. She backed away until her shoulders pressed the wall, breath quickening, heartbeat rising. The shadow at the door didn't move. The presence in the corner didn't move. Only the mirror spoke now, tapping lightly. And then a single, slow, deliberate knock came from inside it. Just once. Mara's legs nearly gave out. The innkeeper whispered urgently, "Don't open anything, Mara. Not the window, not the door, not your eyes, if the mirror calls again." Mara stared at the fractured glass. Her reflection smiled back. Not with malice. Worse. With recognition. The lantern flickered. The shadow under the door pulled itself thinner, sliding inward. And something in the mirror whispered, almost tender, "You don't need to open the door. I'm already here."
Chapter 7.
Chapter 7. If you hear your own voice in the dark, it's already too late. Night clung to Eldhollow like a disease. The fog thickened until it pressed against windows like pale hands, smothering the lantern light, drowning every sound beneath its heavy breath. The inn felt quieter than ever, too quiet, as if the entire village were holding its lungs, waiting for something to happen. Mara sat on the floor beside the bed, knees drawn tight to her chest. Exhaustion weighed on her bones, but she didn't dare lie down. She didn't dare close her eyes. The mirror had stopped tapping hours ago, but the silence around it wasn't comforting. It felt like the silence of something watching, something listening. Her reflection still smiled in her thoughts. The innkeeper had locked the hallway door from the outside, insisting it was the safest she could make the room. Now her footsteps paced faintly downstairs, a steady, anxious rhythm, out of sight, but close enough for Mara to cling to the sound like a lifeline. She inhaled, exhaled, tried to ground herself in the real. But then, a voice drifted through the dark, soft, familiar, broken with pain. "Mara, help me." Her breath froze. The voice came from outside her window. Her voice. She crawled slowly toward the opposite wall, heart pounding so loudly she was sure the whole inn could hear it. Her hands trembled against the cold floorboards. "No," she whispered to herself. No, that's not real." But it came again. A perfect mimicry of the voice she used the night of her accident, when she had cried into the darkness, begging for someone, anyone, to help her crawl out of the ruined car. "Mara, I'm hurt. Please." The words cracked exactly where hers had cracked that night. Her pulse slammed, panic surged, her fingers dug into the wood. "Stop," she whispered harshly. "Stop trying to sound like me." Silence followed. A long, curious silence. Then, Mara. Her name, spoken in her exact breath, her exact tremble, her exact fear. The lantern flickered. Shadows quivered across the floor. The whisper came again, closer now, like lips pressed against the window glass. Mara, open up. It hurts. She shook her head violently. No, you're not me. A faint laugh, her laugh, drifted through the window pane. If it sounds like you, it wants to replace you. Someone had whispered that to her earlier in the village, one of the watchers lurking near the well. She hadn't believed them then. She believed them now. The glass quivered. Fog smeared across the exterior like something dragging its fingers along the pane. A silhouette shifted behind the gray curtain of mist. Human-shaped, but indistinct. It leaned closer. Mara, why did you leave me in the forest? Her stomach dropped. That's not real. That's not real, she whispered, backing up until her shoulders hit the dresser. But the voice sharpened through the fog, the shape pressing harder against the window. You crawled away, and I crawled after you. Her eyes widened. It wasn't pretending anymore. It wasn't begging. It was accusing. The lantern sputtered violently. The walls shuddered as cold air pressed inward. The room felt suddenly smaller, darker, like the night was filling the space inch by inch. A scraping sound came from the window frame. Metal, wood, a soft, deliberate scratch. Something was prying gently, testing the edges. She choked on a breath. Stop it, please. The silhouette tilted its head, mirroring her old habit. You survived. I should have been the one who lived. Her breath stilled. She didn't remember anyone else in the accident. She didn't remember anyone on the road. She didn't remember. But the forest elder had said, "You left a piece of yourself in those trees." Her hands shook uncontrollably. Mara, the voice lowered, almost tender. I'm cold. Let me in. Her heart pounded hard enough to hurt. She looked toward the door, locked from outside. She looked toward the mirror, its cracked surface dark and still. She looked toward the window, and the silhouette slowly lifted a hand, pressing its palm against the glass. Her palm, her fingers, her exact hand. Mara whimpered, "No, no, don't do that!" The reflection hand on the window curled its fingers slightly, tapping once. Tap, tap, tap. Not knocking, not asking. Mapping the shape of the glass. Mapping her. Downstairs, the innkeeper's footsteps stopped abruptly. A moment of silence. Then she called up the stairs, voice shaky but firm. "Mara, stay away from the window. Do you hear me? Stay back!" Mara pushed herself against the wall, tearing her gaze away from the silhouette. The innkeeper shouted louder. "If you hear your own voice in the dark..." The window trembled violently. The silhouette stiffened. The innkeeper finished. "It's already too late." The glass cracked just once. A thin fracture. A spider web of darkness. Mara stared at the bloom of cracks forming beneath the handprint that mirrored her own. The silhouette leaned closer, so close its breath fogged the inside of the glass. And in her exact voice, perfect and hollow, it whispered, "I found you."
Chapter 8.
Chapter 8. The Dead Don't Want You Back. Eldhollow gathered at the edge of the woods just before dawn. The fog hung low and heavy, sinking into the earth like smoke from an unseen fire. Lanterns swayed from crooked posts, their flames dim and shivering, as if afraid of the coming light. The villagers stood in a wide circle, murmuring in low, wavering voices. Prayers or warnings, Mara couldn't tell. They had found her after the window cracked, after her double whispered, "I found you," after she collapsed to the floor, shaking, unable to breathe or scream. Now she stood between two villagers who guided her gently but firmly, their hands soft yet unyielding. They did not restrain her. They simply ensured she didn't run. Not that she had anywhere left to run to. Her voice still echoed in her mind, her voice from outside the window, perfect, hollow, hungry. The villagers parted, revealing the forest elder waiting at the center of the clearing. His hunched form cast a long, crooked shadow across the ground. His cane was planted firmly in the dirt. He didn't look at Mara at first. His gaze was fixed on the tree line, on the darkness beyond it, on something she could not see. Finally, he turned to her. "It followed you," he said quietly. "Of course it did. The forest does not lose what belongs to it." Mara swallowed painfully. Her breath looked pale in the cold air. "What do you want from me?" He said, "Not us. Them." He tapped his cane against the soil. Once, twice. The fog rippled. The villagers began to hum, a low vibration that seemed to seep from the earth itself. Their voices blended into a single breath-like drone. Mara's skin prickled. "What is this? What are you doing?" The elder raised a trembling hand to her cheek. His touch was surprisingly gentle, almost fatherly. "We're giving your soul back," he murmured, "to where it belongs." Mara jerked away from him. "I'm alive!" He closed his eyes, exhaling as though she had just confirmed a long-feared truth. "No, child, you died in these woods. The night you crawled out, something else crawled with you. A shadow with your breath, your face, your voice." He opened his eyes again, sad, resigned, filled with sorrow. "You are an echo wearing the memory of flesh." Mara shook her head. "You're lying." "Are we? Or have you felt it?" Her limbs trembled, her thoughts twisted in knots. She had felt it. The whispers, the involuntary movements, the reflection that lagged, the voice that wasn't hers inside her mind. The elder stepped back, motioning for the villagers to widen the circle. "Mara Ward, you should have stayed in the dirt." A chill stabbed deep into her spine. "What are you doing to me?" she demanded, backing away. A villager's voice whispered, almost tender, "The dead don't want you back because you were never supposed to leave." The village hum deepened into a chant. The earth under Mara's feet seemed to pulse, slow, heavy, like a giant heartbeat buried far beneath. Shadows crept between the trees, long arms stretching, fingers unraveling like black vines. They reached toward her, slowly at first, then hungrily. Mara's breath hitched. One shadow brushed her arm. Her skin went numb. Another wrapped around her ankle. Her leg went cold, the bone aching as if drained of warmth. She screamed, falling onto the damp ground. The elder lifted his cane high above his head. "Return! Return her to where she belongs." The shadows surged. Hands, not entirely human, pulled at her clothes, clawed at her skin. Whispers poured from the forest floor itself. "Come home. Come back to the dirt. You left us behind. You belong with us." Her nails scraped the soil as she tried to drag herself away. "Stop!" she sobbed. "Stop, please, stop!" But the shadows only pulled harder. The air grew colder, her vision blurred, her heartbeat slowed under a weight she couldn't fight. She was being dragged back into the forest, dragged back into the grave she never remembered. "No!" she cried out. "I'm not dead!" And then, just as a shadow wrapped fully around her neck, a voice cut through the chanting. Sharp, terrified, human. "Stop!" The innkeeper rushed into the circle, shoving villagers aside with a desperation Mara never imagined she possessed. "She's not dead," she screamed. "She's still fighting. Can't you see that?" The elder's expression twisted, not in anger, but in sorrow. "She's not the girl you think she is. The dead don't want her back, because she was never meant to return." The innkeeper knelt beside Mara, gripping her hand. "Mara," she whispered fiercely, "listen to me. Fight it. Don't let it take you." The forest roared. Fog surged upward. Shadows convulsed. The ground trembled. And from the deepest part of the forest, a familiar voice whispered, "Mara." Mara's own voice. The villagers silenced instantly. Mara's blood froze. The whisper rose again. "Mara, you took my place." A shape emerged between the trees, human-shaped, wearing her face. The chanting stopped. The shadows stilled. The air went painfully still. The figure stepped forward, slow, smiling, certain. And with perfect imitation, it whispered, "You don't belong here. I do."
Chapter 8.
Chapter 9. Your memories lie to protect you. The figure wearing Mara's face stood at the edge of the clearing. The dawn light barely touched it, as if even the sun did not want to illuminate what stood there. Fog curled around its ankles like obedient pets. Its smile was thin, hungry, and impossibly calm, far calmer than any human expression should be. Mara tried to push herself up, but the cold from the shadows still clung to her limbs, turning her movements sluggish. The innkeeper crouched beside her, gripping her shoulders, whispering frantic reassurance. "It's not you," she said. "It's not you." But the elder shook his head. She is what the forest returned, and what stands before her is what the forest kept. The figure's smile widened. Mara's pulse thundered in her ears. A faint ringing filled her head, like distant bells tolling from beneath the ground. The figure took one step forward. "Do you remember the road?" it whispered. Mara froze. Her breath stuck in her throat. The forest around her seemed to lean in. The world dimmed. A memory surged, one she had never wanted to see again. Rain hammered the windshield. The road blurred. The radio crackled with static. Mara's fingers clenched the steering wheel. And then, headlights. Her own scream. The world flipped. Glass shattered. Metal groaned. But this time, As the memory sharpened, detail bled into the edges, details she hadn't seen before. Behind her car, something ran. Not human, not animal. A shape with too many limbs. Its face a smear of shadow. Its voice a distorted whisper of her own. Mara. She gasped, jolting back to the clearing. The figure across from her, her double, tilted its head. You remember now, it said softly. Good. Mara shook her head. No, that's not real. It is real, the double said. You just refused to see it. Fog shifted behind it, as if reacting to the truth. You were hunted, it whispered, chased off the road, caught in the trees, and when your heart stopped, it stepped closer, fog parting around it. You were hunted, chased off the road, caught in the trees, and when your heart stopped, the forest made a choice. Mara's stomach twisted with nausea. Her fingers dug into the dirt. Stop, she choked. Stop lying to me. The elder's voice cut through softly, a whisper carried by centuries of dread. Your memories lie to protect you from what you've become. Mara flinched at the words. The shadows around her trembled, retreating slightly, as if acknowledging the truth. The vision surged again. She crawled across the forest floor. She dragged herself through wet moss. Branches snapped under something heavy following her. Breathing, deep, ragged, too close. Hot air brushed her neck. She tried to scream, but blood filled her mouth. Her vision blurred. The shadows leaned closer. Their fingers touched her face. Something whispered, "Let me wear you, just for a moment." Her heart gave out. Everything went dark. Mara's scream tore her back into the present. The innkeeper held her tight, whispering, it's okay, look at me, Mara, look at me." But Mara couldn't. She was staring at the figure, at the thing wearing her former life like clothing. It smiled again, proud, almost tender. "You didn't survive. I did." Mara shook her head, sobbing. "That's not true. I'm here. I'm alive." Alive? The double laughed. The sound was horrific. Her laugh, but twisted, hollow. It raised its hand. Mara raised hers involuntarily, like a distorted mirror. "You're a shell," it said softly, "a memory trying to stay warm." Shadows writhed around Mara's feet, curling like smoke. She felt something inside her shift, snap, like a lock turning in her ribcage. Her vision blurred again. Her mind pulled her backward. Another memory. Mara opened her eyes on the forest floor. Her lungs refused to move. Her vision was gray. The world felt distant. She saw her own face staring down at her, except it wasn't her. It was the shadow thing wearing her eyes, wearing her breath, wearing her future. "Mara," the creature whispered, touching her cheek. "Rest. I'll take it from here." Her heart stuttered, stopped. Silence swallowed her whole. Mara collapsed into the dirt of the clearing. Tears streamed down her face. Her voice cracked. No, that can't be real. That can't be me." The elder lowered his head. "The forest remade you, but the memories it gave you are soft, kind, They lie to keep you sane. The double knelt in front of Mara, reaching out to brush hair from her cheek. She recoiled violently. It smiled. Your memories lie to protect you from what you've become. Mara's vision spun. Her body felt colder, heavier, wrong. The shadow stirred, watching her, waiting. Her double leaned close enough that their breaths mingled, close enough that its dead, cold air brushed her lips. Then it whispered, "Let me finish what the forest started." The innkeeper screamed, the villager shouted, the forest roared, and Mara's eyes rolled back as the world split open around her.
Chapter 10.
Chapter 10. Become what the forest tried to take. The forest swallowed Mara. One moment she was collapsing in the clearing, her double looming over her, villagers shouting, shadows tightening around her ankles, and the next, the world lurched sideways. The ground vanished beneath her, wind roared past her ears, and she fell, backward, into darkness. Not night, not fog, something deeper. The forest. It caught her like a hand closing around prey. Cold moss pressed against her back, branches curled above her like twisted ribs. A thin beam of moonlight slipped through the canopy, illuminating the familiar forest floor, the same spot where she had crawled the night of her accident. Her throat tightened. She was back where she died. Footsteps whispered through the undergrowth. Her double emerged from the shadows, moving with deliberate calm. Its face, her face, glowed faintly in the pale light, a parody of humanity. "You shouldn't have run," it said gently. "This is where you belong." Mara forced herself upright. Her limbs trembled, her lungs burned, but something inside her, something old, something buried, felt the forest shifting around her like a living thing. "I'm not going back to the dirt," she whispered. The double laughed softly. "You never left." It stepped forward. The ground pulsed with its movements, as if the forest itself responded to its presence. Vines stirred, leaves rustled, roots creaked like ancient bones. Mara backed away until her spine pressed against a massive tree trunk. The bark felt unnervingly warm beneath her skin, like a heartbeat pulsing from within it. The double tilted its head. "You're afraid because you know the truth." Mara shook her head, breath breaking. "You're lying." "No." It crouched in front of her with unsettling grace. "You're the replacement. I am the original." The forest listened. The trees leaned in. The fog thickened, coiling around Mara's wrist like pale ropes. Images flashed behind her eyes, memories the forest had hidden from her. Her lungs filling with mud, roots curling around her ankles, shadow hands pressing gently against her chest as her heart stuttered for the last time. She had died. She had really died. The forest had made a choice. Mara swallowed hard, tears stinging her eyes. "Why let me out then? Why let me walk away?" The double's smile faded. That wasn't the plan. It reached out, fingers twitching in anticipation. "You crawled out before I was ready to wear you." Mara's stomach twisted. "Wear me?" "I needed your memories, your breath, your voice, but you ran. You fled before the forest was finished." A shudder rippled through the ground. Branches creaked above her head. "Mara," the double murmured, "come back to me. Let me complete what began the night you died." The forest pulsed again, this time from beneath Mara's feet. A slow, heavy beat. Her heart were something mimicking one. She pressed a trembling hand to her chest. Beneath her ribs, she felt movement.
shifting, like roots stretching in the dark. "I'm not you," she said, voice trembling. The double's face twisted. "You are me, a hollow version, a shadow, a borrowed shape." It lunged. Mara threw herself aside, rolling through damp leaves. Pain flared along her ribs. The double's fingers grazed the moss, and the ground withered instantly under its touch. Mara scrambled to her feet. Branches blocked her path. Roots shifted to trap her ankles. The forest wasn't helping her. It was choosing. The double approached slowly. "Stop running. I'm what you used to be, and you're the thing the forest created to replace me." Mara's breath hitched. Her vision blurred. Her thoughts spiraled. Replacement, echo, shell. But then, something inside her snapped. Not broken. Awakened. A surge of heat pulsed through her veins. Her breath steadied. The shadows around her recoiled as if sensing something new coiling inside her. The forest trembled. The double stopped mid-step. "What are you doing?" it hissed. Mara rose, slowly, feeling the cold peel away from her bones. "I'm remembering," she whispered. The leaves around her shivered. The roots beneath her stirred. A faint glow, pale, unnatural, spread across her arms like veins lighting up beneath the skin. The double stepped back, eyes widening. "No, no, you can't." Mara looked up. Her voice was steady now. "You said I'm a hollow version." A slow, eerie smile curved her lips. "But maybe I can be something else." The forest wind howled, branches quaked, fog twisted violently, spiraling around her feet. The double recoiled further, terror creeping into its eyes. "Mara, stop." She stepped forward. "For the first time," she said softly, "I'm not running." The double bared its teeth. "The forest made you to be nothing." Maybe, or maybe the forest was afraid. The trees groaned, the ground shook, the shadows writhed as if in pain. The double screamed, not in rage, in fear. "What are you doing?" Mara leaned in, her voice a whisper carried by wind and death. "Becoming the thing the forest feared most, myself." The forest split open with a deafening crack. Light surged outward, cold, silver, ancient. The double's form twisted, shuddered, and began to dissolve, its stolen voice breaking apart into echoes. "Mara, stop!" But it was too late. The forest had made a monster. It just hadn't realized which one. And for the first time since she crawled out of the trees, Mara felt whole. She stepped out of the clearing as the forest trembled behind her, not in hunger, not in anger, in fear.
I came into Eld Hollow believing I was human, believing I was a survivor. But the truth is simpler, colder, sharper. I wasn't saved by the forest. I was remade by it. Every scream, every shadow, every whisper calling my name wasn't trying to haunt me. It was trying to remind me of what I really am. A memory wearing flesh. A truth walking on stolen bones. A creature learning how to be alive again. And now that I've stopped running, now that I've finally looked into the dark and recognized the voice calling back, I know this. You don't escape the night. You survive by becoming what it fears. So, the next time the shadows move, the next time something calls your name from where it shouldn't, don't run. Look it in the eye and ask it what it wants from you.